the bullets and the punches and the riots have been flowing in only one direction for too long.
I've been trying to tell you guys this whole time how corrupt all of these things were, and here we are.
It is not our responsibility to fix something they spent years intentionally trying to destroy. Unity can only happen in a country when you have a people who agree on what the outcome should be. Well, what's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. We are getting awful close to Christmas. Can you guys see my cool Christmas lights back here? You see that?
Yep.
I got these up. It's almost Christmas time, and I'm pretty stoked for it. What's up, Cat Sass 5X over on Rumble? And there's a bunch of folks over on YouTube. DJ Constructive is always here early, chatting in the live chat. Tuft SE B. Are we live over on X? We should probably go check that real quick. I think we are.
We're over on Rumble.
We're good on X. Let me post this out here to my personal X account. So
yep.
People can watch
share, do all that stuff.
I don't know if you guys noticed it, but we're missing somebody. SK again is tardy. Actually, she's going to be absent today. She called in sick. She still has a lot going on. They're trying to get her family affairs in order and get people settled. So she left us alone again. And just like last time, this could turn out to be an absolute shit show. But one thing that came out of SK not being here tonight is Nom and I were just sitting in the green room, just staring at each other.
It was
just looking
quiet.
at each other. It was very quiet. And
we were ready like 15 minutes early. And we were just sitting there like, what's up?
And I remember looking at him and I was like, man, without SK here, it's quiet. I don't think we realize like how much color commentary she brings to the green room and to the show without her. So I don't really know how this is going to turn out, but I think we've got an absolute banger for you tonight. After what we witnessed take place in the Candyland cult, and yes, I've changed the name of it. I know on Monday, one of the folks in the comments, and I wish I remembered her name. If you're there, say hi so that I can give you credit for the initial name of the Candyland Tards, which still makes sense. But after witnessing what we've been witnessing, I think it's appropriate to refer to them affectionately as the Candyland cult. I'm convinced
they were all up
we
in
are
my
right
comments
now.
today.
Oh yeah, dude. They were all up in everyone's comments. And the strangest thing is I keep seeing the same people show up in the Nick Fuentes comments, and I'm arguing with the same people, it feels like. And we may get to that topic in another time because I've been seeing some of the most disturbing content come out of that group of people that we're going to have to address. Because for some reason, the media is trying to paint that side of, I guess, the political lexicon as the right. And I don't know. It's making my stomach hurt just watching what I'm seeing coming out of there.
No. In fact, if you consider yourself a follower or a groiper of Nick Fuentes, you can take your ass and go stand right over there, right next to Antifa, because that's where you belong.
That's right.
You may not be out in the streets doing fascist things, but when I see some of you Nick Fuentes groipers like praising Hitler and saying, you know what, Hitler is just a bit misunderstood, you can take your ass and go stand right over there. And listen, folks, these two groups of people, the Candyland cult and the Nick Fuentes groipers, they are intentionally splintering the MAGA movement. They are intentionally, we do not want to be doing podcasts about this nonsense because there's so many holes in everything that the Candyland cult is talking about. In fact, we're going to drill giant freaking, we're going to bore like the Elon's, boring company. And he had that giant machine that will bore holes through mountains and stuff. We're going to bore giant holes in the Candyland cult story that she pushed out yesterday. But we don't want to be doing this. We would much rather spend our time putting pressure on Congress to actually enshrine like President Trump's executive orders and to start dealing with these insurrectionist judges and all of the things that everybody's like, well, he's not doing anything and there's no accountability. Well, no shit, because they don't have to do anything because we spend all of our time dealing with people like Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes instead.
That's right. But I will say that it is important that we talk about this. And I think this is in the moment, and it's not going to last for long, because I don't know if you guys saw what I named this episode, but I'm pretty convinced that Candyland Storytime, the cult following, is in the middle of a collapse. I'm pretty confident that it's collapsing on itself after what we witnessed yesterday. It can't last much longer. It's impossible for the grift and the conspiracy bubble that they've created to extend much longer. So we will eventually get back to the things that we think are really important, just like Nom said, dealing with Congress and the feckless, weak-ass leadership we're seeing out of our elected Republicans. It's disgusting, and their involvement in the seditious conspiracy that's been ongoing. It's disgusting, and we'll get back to it. But I do think it's important that we talk about this topic, because I am absolutely convinced now, after what I saw yesterday and some of the research that I did today, that this is just another offshoot of the same color revolution that we've been talking about since we started the show about 3 months ago. 32 episodes. Most of it has been dedicated to dealing with the color revolution and the people who are trying to destroy America. And I'm absolutely convinced that Candace Owens, in partnership with foreign intelligence agencies and her weird ass husband, are deeply embedded in the exact same agenda that's been playing out through all these NGOs, through the radical Antifa, trans Tifa groups, all of it. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's just different offshoots of it. But I want to set this up for you. So Candace Owens yesterday spent the entire day preparing people for what she said was going to be the most explosive news that she had released yet. News that was going to force the United States military into confessing to participating in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. That's what she said. That is the hook that she sent out early yesterday. And Nom's going to play that for you here in just a second. And because I'm an open-minded person, and because I accept people's challenge to actually go watch and listen to what people I disagree with actually say, I did. So last night, driving in my truck, I don't know where, I think I was picking my daughter up from ballet for rehearsal for her Nutcracker performance that's coming up. I listened to the entire show, and I walked away from that show more confused than ever before, and absolutely convinced that this woman is making this shit up. It's conspiracy theory.
I don't know if she's making it up, but she is reading a story that's being given to her, is what I'm in the story of Harry Meyers, which she read yesterday, is a story, and it's not even a good one. It's not a good story. There's no feasible way that Harry Meyers even got on the base, assuming what she said about Harry Meyers was true. There's no feasible way, but we'll get into that. So
right,
you want to play her tease video?
Let's do this. You have to see this. If you haven't seen this, you have to see the way she tried to set this up yesterday to get all the world to pay attention to her. And then we are going to walk through the biggest face plant I think I've ever witnessed in social media. Roll it.
So the story I'm about to tell you guys today is so unbelievable that you know it has to be the truth. It's so detailed. We fact-checked everything that we could, and it has to be a God thing. It's the only way that this could have landed in my lap from the person that it came from. I don't even know what to say about this. You're just going to be amazed, and your jaw is going to be on the floor like mine was when I learned this. And this kind of gets into that mysterious last trip to Asia that Charlie took. The timing of that was very strange.
I mean, there you go. She just basically set it up and then said that this is going to be the nail in the coffin. This is going to be the thing. And then I don't know if we have it, Nom. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I put it in the Dropbox, but I don't know if I labeled it. Do we have the way she actually opened her show yesterday? Do you know if we have that? Let's play this. Let me see if
ready.
I can find it.
I'll bring it up. I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
It wasn't ready. It was 6.1. Is it this one here?
Guys,
Yeah, I
happy
think so.
Tuesday. Where to begin? Well, in the final days leading up to Charlie Kirk's assassination, Charlie was pretty busy, right? He went on a first-time trip to Asia, quite a quick trip, at least a quick turnaround to go first to Korea for a couple of days and then off to Japan. And honestly, if I was a conspiracy theorist, and I kind of am one, I might think at this stage that the timing of that trip might have been intentional because something was going on back home they didn't want him to see. Well, what I'm about to tell you guys today is going to positively blow your mind. I just cannot see how this would lead to anything other than a full confession from the government about the military's involvement in his assassination, but I'm just going to deliver the facts and see where they land. Welcome back to Candace.
Well, I'm here to tell you they didn't land at all. The only thing that landed was her face. What's going on with the screen there?
I don't know. You push the button. Stop pushing buttons.
The only thing that landed was her face on the ground. That was we're going to walk through this for you guys, but just to kind of, not bury the lead. It was one of the biggest face plants I've ever seen. One of the biggest face plants I've ever seen. Now, I want to remind you guys. So I've been tracking this because it's important for you to understand where we are in the Candyland cult Storytime timeline, because she's been talking about this since the day after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And I've been tracking all of the different people, organizations, and governments that she is at one point accused of being part of the plot to assassinate Charlie Kirk. And I'm going to read you the list that I've been tracking closely, just so that you know how far down the track to Looney Land we find ourselves today. She's at some point accused the French government, the Israeli government, the Egyptian government, the US government, the FBI, Turning Point USA as an inside job, Mossad, the French Foreign Legion, the Gendarmerie Intervention Group, which is a French organization, the ADL, Freemasons, BBNet, which is not BB Netanyahu. She's talking about an Irish internet service provider, Yahoo. She's blamed Charlie's security team. She's blamed Erica Kirk directly, Emmanuel Macron, Brigitte Macron, Bibi Netanyahu himself. She's implicated Bill Ackman, Josh Hammer, Kash Patel, Blake Neff, Alex Clark, Tyler Boyer, Brian Harpole, Dan Flood. She's accused Pastor Rob McCoy of helping to cover it up. She's also accused Pierre DuPont and the entire DuPont family because of their Freemason ties. Stacey Sheridan for God knows what. She's even accused Donald Trump because why not? Because everyone else blames him for everything. She's accused Jewish donors of funding the hit job. She's accused Zionist and Jewish hitmen. She's accused the Bolsheviks and other Christian or anti-Christian forces. She's accused a brigade of maroon-shirted individuals that she suspected were operatives or military operatives signaling to one another. And she even sent out her entire organization, her audience, to identify these maroon shirt wearing military operatives. She's accused beekeepers from some really weird dream as a tip that she had. Mormons, Marcus Hale, who, by the way, is not even a real person. He's actually a fictional character that was generated through AI. So this is a list of all of the people and organizations that Candyland Cultville leader Candace Owens has at some point implicated in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But do you know who she has not implicated and, as a matter of fact, has gone to great lengths to try to exonerate? I'll give you that list. Tyler Robinson, and she's also said that Lance Twigg is protected by the feds.
So I'll say it again. I mean, that's a pretty lengthy list. That's pretty. pretty wild story she's spinning there. Again, and I mentioned this last week, the only two people that she is not accused, and she's claiming that one is being protected by the feds, the only person that she's not accusing, and she's basically trying to exonerate, or dare I say, she is trying to build a reasonable doubt case for the defense, is Tyler Robinson. This is jury nullification happening in real time. She is basically tainting the jury pool with all that right there that you read out is literally the roadmap now that the defense for Tyler Robinson could say, well, what about this person? What about the Egyptian government? There were Egyptian planes. What about the U.S. government? What about Turning Point USA? What about Alex Clark? What about Tyler Boyer? Which is, by the way, is how reasonable doubt cases are built. You've got all these other
guarantee,
people.
You can guarantee that the defense will be talking about this stuff. Insane.
Yeah.
Insane. All right. So I think I want to go a little bit out of order because I think the next thing I have on here is a deep dive that I did using AI to try to help people understand exactly what this woman is doing and the way she's doing it and the way that she has obviously been trained, most likely from foreign intelligence agencies, to deploy some very sophisticated psychological tactics that are very well known along the color revolutionist, USAID, British, English intelligence, step by step. This is how disinformation campaigns are developed. This is how color revolution counter-offensives are developed. This is why I think it's important that we talk about this and that we systematically dismantle the disaster that happened last night. So Nom, let's go ahead and jump down to the section where we start diving into the narrative that she spun, the story that she wove yesterday, because immediately there was some glaring holes in this story that she told last night. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you walk through this because I know you just recently listened to it and have some really solid notes on it.
Yeah, I mean, so first let's start out because I think one of the first things that just weirded me out about the entire thing was, so the clip we just played of how she set it up, she immediately goes into, how she's at church on Monday, and I don't know all the Catholic terms, but it was basically a mandatory day of observance or whatever. And while she's there, she's praying for evidence to appear. And wouldn't you know, as soon as she was done, she went home and evidence was there.
To attend mass outside of obviously typically Sundays. And so as soon as we concluded this podcast, I grabbed my jacket and I ran out the door. Okay. And as I was sitting through mass, deciding, I guess what was on my mind to pray about, for whatever reason, I got on my knees and I was not expecting this to come out, but I just focused my prayer on wanting something to be delivered to me, a piece of evidence that would help us put together the full picture of this assassination. Obviously, we all know that what we are being told is not true. We all know that nothing that we have been presented with makes any practical sense, but there are sort of smoking guns in this that are missing, right? It's one thing to point out all the lies, but we need to also have solid, concrete proof of something that took place that was out of the ordinary.
All right, I want to stop that right there. Okay. And this will go on. I don't know if we'll play the rest of it. I don't know if we need to, but she is hinging all of this on the fact that there are, as she terms it, glaring holes, or the smoking guns are missing. We talked about this on Monday because Candace Owens is not privy to the entire case that the Utah prosecutors have. Does not mean that the smoking gun doesn't exist, because you've only seen portions of video of Tyler Robinson running across the rooftop of the building and climbing down. And yes, you can see the rifle as he's climbing down. It's down there. And because you don't see every movement that he made from the time he got out of his vehicle until the time he got back into his vehicle, doesn't mean that they don't have it. Or at least a large portion of it. We dealt with one of these questions on Monday where you didn't see the muzzle flash. Well, number one, it's during the day. I mean, and it's sunny out. Okay, if it was at nighttime, I could understand that, but during the day, no. Well, how do you know they don't have the video and they just haven't shown it to you? You don't see everything that is going to go into this case. These people need to calm down. Right.
That's right.
So
hey, real quick, Cat Sass 5X over on Rumble asked a really good question, and I think I want to bring it up. She says, "How do you guys have time to compile all this info?" Well, this is our labor of love. We love doing this, and as we are scrolling, we compile. That's what we do. Go ahead, Nom.
Yeah. So let's continue. Let's let her go on. I'm just going to leave it here and let's keep watching.
In the days leading up, maybe, I don't know, a planning session. Well, I got back home
what she's looking
after this very intentional prayer and did my routine, had a very late dinner, went up and said goodnight to the kids, got myself ready for bed, sat in bed, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to open the tips box. And I kid you not when I say that it was the very first email that I saw, the very first email that I opened up, and it really didn't have any details. It was a young woman, and she said, "You really should call my friend. It is absolutely urgent, and he has information that you need to hear." And don't tell me why. I don't know what came over me, but maybe it was this intentional prayer. I said, I'm just going to call him right now. 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes after this email hit my inbox, I was calling this person and I had no idea what it was going to lead to, whether it was going to be a totally insane person or whether or not it was going to be a very swiftly answered prayer. The person that I spoke with, his name is or was Harry, and he told me a story which I have since fact-checked various elements, the elements that I could fact-check, and it's legit. This is...
Well, Candy, you didn't do a very good job fact-checking all of it. That's for sure.
Yeah. So that's how this thing starts. So we've got a couple other clips that we pulled out that are key to this, but we're not even going to talk about the answered prayers and all that stuff because I understand, listen, that's all entirely possible. The one thing that I am going to pick to pieces in the next probably 5 to 10 minutes is the fact that Harry, who we now know is a gentleman by the name of Harry Meyers, that Harry now has a new identity because Harry was running for his life after what Harry did while he was in the military, while he was stationed at Fort Huachuca as part of Joint Task Force 6 back in the day, which I believe was formed around 1988, 1989 at Fort Huachuca. So she goes to basically, she spends like half of of her segment explaining who Harry Meyers was. And it's a real story. It's a person who essentially found the first underground rail tunnel system that the Sinaloa cartel was using. And the allegation and all of the reporting says that there were members of Joint Task Force 6, especially the commander of Joint Task Force 6, who, by the way, was a high-ranking Border Patrol agent at the time, because that's what Joint Task Force are meant to do. It's meant to bring different agencies together so that they can do things. And that's what Joint Task Force 6 back then was meant to do, was, interdict the drug trade and do all of those things. And apparently, when this underground rail tunnel system was found, there was a ton of reporting that was done on it. She showed a ton of videos, a ton of articles. The Border Patrol agent that was the commander of this particular unit that Harry Meyers worked for and worked under was found to be in photos on the Mexican side with the cartel leader. So he was all implicated stuff, right? So she spends a lot of time setting up who Harry Meyers is. And then she goes on to say that Harry Meyers, because he was the one who found this, and apparently he went around his chain of command because they were concerned that people in the chain of command were involved in, and they had knowledge of the underground rail tunnel, that they couldn't be trusted. So they went around the chain of command. And according to her reporting, they received a warrant to then go and view and take control of this tunnel system without her chain of command knowing about it, or his chain of command knowing about it. Yada, yada, yada. The story goes on. You guys can go and watch all of this stuff. She, like I said, she spends about 10 minutes explaining who Harry Meyers back then was. And then the story of Harry Meyers then was that someone at the cartel was then given his confidential classified information, which the only person who had access to that was the commander of the unit who was supposedly involved with the cartel. So now the cartel is coming after him and they want to kill him. So then he has to go on the run. She doesn't give any information about.
Hold on.
When
Harry does allege that he was approached by somebody to put him into witness protection. And then somehow that just fell apart.
Yep.
So he was not actually ever placed into witness protection. So he went on the run.
Which is key. Now, what we don't know is if Harry Meyers continued the rest of his enlistment, the rest of his contract, and stayed in the military until his contract was up, or if he essentially went AWOL. We don't know that. We could probably look into it and find out what happened to the Harry Meyers. But the story that Candace Owens tells is that Harry Meyers basically goes from being offered witness protection by the military and by the FBI because his life is at risk as a result of the Sinaloa cartel finding out his identity. And then she leaps forward to where, he is basically in hiding. He's got a ton of police reports that he's producing that went missing for years and years and years until a county clerk helped him dig all these things up. And then he shows up with a different name, a different identity, which at the very end of that video clip, she says, and that made my little radar go off, because it is next to impossible, even in 1990. Actually, it was a little bit easier in 1990 than it is in 2025 to change your identity. So I was like, how easy is it for someone to change their name, change their identity without the help of witness protection?
It's not easy.
It's very, very hard. In 1990, it was actually hard. When he feared for life, is actually harder than it is in 2025. And this is what I got from Grok, right? Not easier. So the only real way you could do it back then, and even now in 2025, is really through the witness protection program, federal witness protection. There are some state level victim protection programs that you could do. You could possibly go through some court ordered name changes for safety back then. But getting a new, if you did that, if you went through a court ordered name change back in 1990, it would be incredibly rare for the court to seal the documentation of your name change, because it has to be documented, right? You're going through a court to try to do this stuff.
Now we do have to leave. Hold on. We do have to leave a little bit of room here for the possibility that he assumed somebody else's identity, because we know how easy that is. We know how easy it is, particularly under Democrat presidents and Democrat administrations, for people just to assume somebody else's deceased identity. So we have to leave a little bit of plausible room here for the likelihood or the possibility that Harry Meyers basically just pretended to be somebody else. We have to leave that possibility.
And I do leave room for that, because this difficulty in changing your name without a trail, without a trace, is problematic later on when the guy's supposedly trying to get access to a military base as a civilian.
That's right.
It's next to impossible. So again, and you guys can go and read this, but without the help of federal witness protection or a state witness protection program, any other attempt to legally change your name is going to be documented in court. In fact, I even read somewhere, I have to find it, but one of these things said that most cities, if you're trying to legally change your name through a court system, they're going to publish it in the newspaper for 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
That has happened.
That kind of defeats the whole purpose of changing your name to protect yourself.
Right. Defeats the whole purpose. But we do have to leave room for the idea that Harry basically stole or assumed somebody else's identity. Because any other way, even if you do legally change your name, the Social Security Administration is not going to issue a new Social Security number, right? It's like, it's not a thing. It's next to impossible to have the Social Security number give you a new, or Social Security Administration give you a new Social Security number. So then you have to ask the question, well, okay, if you can't get a new Social Security number and you, I don't know, you somehow figured out through the court system to change your name and they sealed it for some reason, but you're not able to get a new Social Security number through the Social Security Administration, how do you then spend the next 35 years of your life living your life, unless you're doing it under an assumed identity of someone else that already existed? And then you're going to have even more problems, because even in 1990, right, they had the ability to compare photos on driver's licenses. They had pictures on your driver's license. Okay.
Sorry, but Family Crest over on Rumble just made me laugh. Family Crest says, change my name to Kanye West, but I still can't get my hands on his vast wealth.
Right.
That was funny. Sorry. Continue.
So where were we?
So I think next step is, it's important to lay out one of the key factors here, right? Because Harry Meyers has basically been on the run or in hiding for 35 years. And what was it that caused Harry Meyers to go into hiding? What was the fact that apparently Harry Meyers was forced to sign an NDA, which I'm sure Candace is at some point going to provide for her audience to be able to produce, for her audience to be able to verify.
Hold on. It's not any NDA, according to Candace. It's a military grade NDA.
Oh, that's a special one.
Unquote, a military grade NDA.
That's a special one. A special one. Is that like bulletproof? Is that like extended life? It's got to be, because it was a 35-year military grade NDA, 35 years, and it had a sunsetting provision in it. So apparently, as of this year, within the last several months, that sunsetting provision just happened to sunset. So now Harry Meyers, under his new alias, is allowed to talk. And yes, I guess Harry Meyers wants to talk to Candace.
Well, listen, her language is important, and we actually have a video. Let's play this video that sort of kind of explains everything we just tried to summarize.
Very base where this all began, right? To Fort. He is finally released from this 35-year military grade NDA. So what does this now 56-year-old decide to do? He decides that he's going to confront his past. He wants answers, okay? He wants to know why he was never protected. He wants to know if the FBI had been informed, and if so, which they were supposed to be, why they didn't do their job. Why didn't they protect Harry? He was working for the military and he did his job. He makes up his mind that he's going to deal with this in person. He is going to travel from his home in Washington back down to the very base where this all began, right? To Fort Huachuca, in Arizona. He's going to revisit the past. He's going to get these answers. He books himself to stay in a hotel on the base, a military hotel known as Candlewood Suites. And this is on the evening of September 8th. I want you to remember that, okay? He has been so thorough. He has sent me timestamps, bookings, reservations, went through his call logs. I was like, I want you to pinpoint when everything happened. So he gets to the Candlewood Suites at approximately, on September 8th, 5:37 p.m. Checks into the hotel. And you can imagine he's a person that pays a lot of attention to his surroundings, right?
All right, we're going to pause there because I have questions.
Before we do, every time Candace Owens gives you information from an anonymous source, our response should collectively be, you need to show the proof. Because I quite honestly am sick and tired of Candace Owens spinning these webs of conspiracy theories and say that she has seen it, but not showing it. Candace, show the proof. You said that he sent you bookings, receipts, documents showing that he stayed at Candlewood Suites. Prove it. It's time to prove it.
Yeah.
Continue.
Well, so in the absence of her evidence, her documents, the questions I have is how did he get on base? Because Candlewood Suites, by the way, is on Fort Huachuca. It is a military hotel, right? And it caters to military, travelers, families, contractors, and retirees. That is who it caters to. It is very difficult. Now, civilians can book a reservation at the Candlewood Suites building 44420. But you are last on the priority list. If you're active military, you're reserve, you're traveling military, you're the family of military, you're a contractor, or you're a retiree, you go to the top of that list. And Fort Huachuca is a pretty busy base, right?
Apparently,
So
it was very busy at this point too. Apparently, it was very, very busy.
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that pretty significantly. So, however, civilians can book a reservation at Sandalwood or whatever the hell it's called.
Candlewood
Hotel and Suites, Candlewood Suites. The problem is you have to be able to get on base first, which means you have to go through the process of requesting visitor access to the installation. And you have to go through these pesky things called background checks. So since about September 11th, 2001, you don't just walk onto a military installation anymore. That's not a thing. In fact, I don't even know if you could really do it before then. They've got gates, and now they've got, concrete barriers, and you got to drive in S formations to get through all this stuff.
You could not.
But you have to go through a background.
ID'd.
Yeah. You have to go through a background check. But one of the interesting things that happened in May of 2025, what happened in May of 2025, Patriot Dad? What changed about our identification requirements?
That's when you had to have a federal ID, isn't it?
Real ID.
A real
ID was required on all U.S. military installations. You have,
right.
In order to request visitor access, you have to have a real ID.
Has anyone tried to get a real ID yet? Do you know? Do you understand the process that you have to go through in order to get a real ID? You have to show multiple forms of identification. It is basically, in my mind, it is the perfect solution for citizenship verification for voting, because of the steps that your state have to go through to verify that you are who you say you are, which would be really hard for somebody who's living under an alias to do. Because one of the things that you're required to provide
would be impossible unless you actually went through the federal witness protection program, because you're not going to be able to do this just by assuming someone's identity who's dead, because you're going to need.
But he didn't. He wasn't part of the witness protection program. That's what Candace told us.
Right. Well, so then how do you obtain a real ID in 2025 when for 35 years you've been living under an assumed identity because you weren't in witness protection? You didn't go through even a court system and had it sealed, unless she has those evidence of those documents or those cases and those case files being sealed. Can we see them? Listen, this is Occam's razor.
We need to demand to see them.
Yeah, we do. This is Occam's razor. It's time to put up or shut the hell up, Candace. Listen, I know we're no ones, we're peons, but if we can do this in a matter of 3 hours, what is your cult doing? Because you're telling a story with giant Swiss cheese size holes in it that doesn't make any sense. How does Harry Meyers obtain an entirely new identity and live under a new identity for 35 years because he's running for his life from the Sinaloa cartel? And then you said that the FBI and his military leadership completely dropped the ball and he didn't get federal witness protection. Those two things don't make sense.
So Nom, real quick, before you go on, it's important to note that what we were talking about was just the fact that you have to provide a real ID in order to apply to get on the base. But then there's an actual process of going through a background check to get on base. Now, I don't know if anyone has ever been through an FBI or a DHS background check before. If you've ever received a concealed carry permit or purchased a firearm through an FFL, you have to do that. That is not necessarily a fast process.
Yeah.
It's not something that you instant. What?
It uses the same background database that firearms checks, the National Crime Information Center Interstate Identification Index.
Now, if you've ever been flagged when you try to purchase a firearm, they will flag you for just about anything, which means instantaneously they will know that, hey, this is somebody that we can't fully verify for some reason. We don't know why. Maybe they're on a list somewhere. Something is shady in their background. Maybe they're using some reason. They will know that. And you ain't getting on that base if you're flagged in that background check. It's not happening.
You're not. So in order to even get to the background check, this isn't just Fort Huachuca. This is like the Army. In fact, they probably have the same form with a different header for every military installation, both inside the continental United States and OCONUS outside the continental United States. And it looks a little something like this. You got to give them your full name, your driver's license number. How does Harry Meyers have a driver's license under an assumed identity? You got to give them your social security number, resident, all this stuff, right? So this is basic background check stuff. But that, by the way, Harry Meyers, if you assume someone's identity, you just committed perjury on a federal form, by the way.
Yep.
So,
yep. And by the way, folks,
yeah,
keep in mind, this is what is needed to be able to get on base to stay in the hotel.
Right. That's before you can
That's
even
step
book
one.
A reservation. You can't book a reservation without the visitor pass or without the approved background check and access granted. And then when you show up there, right, you're going to go to the gate guard, and they'll either issue your visitor's pass there. If you're a foreign national, you cannot move around on a base unaccompanied. U.S. nationals, U.S. citizens they can move around unaccompanied into public areas, public spaces like the PX, the exchange, those sorts of things, which is really fascinating because she goes on then to say, she tells some other story about Harry. Once he gets there, he gets checked in. She gives an exact time that he's checking in, and there are E4 and E5 lieutenant colonels that are checking him in, and he notices while he's checking in at the hotel that a special forces guy is there, and she specifically
Can we just pause for a second? Just hold on. Can we just pause for a second?
Well, we'll let her say it because I've got the rest of the video. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Well, which one was it?
I don't know. While we're pausing for a second.
Yeah.
Did anybody catch the fact that Harry Meyers, who is supposed to be this deeply ingrained military background person, refers to lieutenant colonels as E4s or E5s? What's the problem with that, Nom?
Oh, I mean, all of it. I don't. So listen, I'm going to give Candace a little bit of leeway and say maybe it's just her that is mixing up the E4, E5 lieutenant colonels.
It's possible, but
you should notice get this detail right.
Yeah, but it's important to note that she actually came back a little bit later after reading the comments through her live stream and confirmed. She actually confirmed because her audience was telling her, you're right, a lieutenant colonel is an E5. She confirmed it through her intelligent, deeply informed audience who confirmed for her with this military background, these people that know what they're talking about. She came back and said, my audience is confirmed a lieutenant colonel is an E5. I almost ran my truck off the road when I heard that.
Yeah. I mean,
because here's the spoiler, folks. It's not an E5. No, that's a sergeant. That's a sergeant. That's a sergeant.
Or a petty officer in the Navy. But it's a sergeant.
Or something else.
And it could be a specialist in the Army, I suppose. But
yeah, no. Now it's an 05.
Mm-hmm.
An 05.
Yep.
And it's a very big difference between an E5 and an 05. We're not going to argue that right now, but for her audience to verify and confirm for her that you're right, Candace, it is an E5 lieutenant colonel rank, tells me all I need to know about the level of engagement and intelligence that she has in her comment section of her videos. Continue.
Yeah. Well, we'll just let her finish the rest of this clip that I had, because since she starts to tell the story of what happens at the hotel, And this is key.
Cartels are after you and your family, and you are compelled to change your name. You pay attention to your surroundings to see if anybody looks shady. What he notices is somebody who is special forces in the lobby. He said, you just know when you're dealing with a special forces guy. And he is in the lobby, and a young woman, comes down thereafter. That young woman, who at the time he did not recognize, is with him. They kind of fluff around in the lobby while he's checking in. He's on the phone with his wife. And thereafter, the two of them get into a green pickup truck and they drive off. Okay.
That's it. That's the special sauce of what happened at the hotel. Which, by the way, I mean, which is interesting because the hotel literally is designed for, what do they say? Military travelers, families, contractors, and retirees. Hey, Patriot Dad, we're going to get into this a little bit later. Do you think there would be special forces guys at Fort Huachuca?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very possible. Hold on. And I missed this when I was watching the show, but am I the only one that just caught on to the fact that Harry apparently was there with some young woman and got into a truck with her, but was on the phone with his wife?
No. That's not what she said. She said that the young woman met up with the special forces guy and they left together in a green pickup truck. So that's a little bit of level of
green pickup truck. Got it.
In a green pickup truck.
So it wasn't Harry that was there with another woman.
No, because Harry's
just want to clear that up. We just want to clear that up. Harry was not there with another woman while he was talking with his wife on the phone. Now that we've got that cleared up. Because honestly, she didn't explain that very well, so I'm confused. Continue.
Well, okay, so then she goes on to say that the next morning Harry wakes up at like 5:30 because he wanted to see the sunrise. And then he decides, because his entire point of going to Fort Huachuca is he's going to go and confront Army CID, Criminal Investigative Division, which is just wild to imagine that, after 35 years, you're just going to show up to a CID unit at Fort Huachuca who literally nobody there even knows who you are. They don't know your story. And then you're going to go start interrogating them. But I digress. So he leaves. He gets up at 5:30. He leaves the hotel and he gets in his rental car, and then he starts driving around the base to try to find the CID building, CID office. And he couldn't find it. For the life of him, he couldn't find it. So he's like, well, shucks, I guess I'm going to give up. And then he leaves the base and he goes out in town to get a cup of coffee. And while he's out in town to get a cup of coffee, he sees a number of soldiers out there in town, assuming they're getting a cup of coffee as well. And they've got 10th Mountain Division patches on their uniforms, which he's like, oh my gosh, that's the unit that I was in when I was a part of Joint Task Force 6. And I thought 10th Mountain Division got disbanded, which it never did. When Joint Task Force 6 got disbanded, which it never did. What happened to Joint Task Force 6 is it became, I think in 2004, Joint Task Force North, JTF North. And then later, it was designated Joint Task Force Southern Border at Fort Huachuca under JTF North. So Harry, thinking that 10th Mountain Division had been disbanded, decides to go and talk to the guys. And the guys are like, no, 10th Mountain Division didn't go anywhere. I don't know why you would think it did. I mean, did the guy go live in a cave in Washington? State of Washington? I don't know. Anyway, so these guys, the 10th Mountain Division soldiers out there in Mountain Town, give him directions to go to the JTF Southern Border Command Center back on base.
Just volunteer directions to what is obviously a pretty secure location. And you're going to understand why it's so secure here shortly. But just, hey, dude, I don't really know who you are, but you notice my patch. Here's how you get to our the nerve system of our Southern
Command Center. So that's all well and fine. I have a question for Harry. I got a lot of questions for Harry Meyers. Why didn't you ask for directions to CID? Because that's the freaking office you couldn't find. Why didn't you ask directions for CID? And so he runs into 10th Mountain Division soldiers out there in their patches, and he's like, you know what? Instead of going to CID, I'm going to go to the source of the unit 35 years ago that screwed me over, denied me witness protection so that I had to go on the run for 35 years, and it ruined my life and all the other things. I'm going to go directly to the source, even though literally nobody there has any freaking clue who you are at all.
I got to say, Nom, you are making this story more believable than even Candace made it. And the way you were laying this story out makes it sound like the most cockamamie BS propaganda nonsensical story I've ever heard. But I believe your version of it better than I believe hers.
I'm not done yet.
Okay.
So Harry Meyers, aka new name guy, assumed identity, goes back on the base because he still got his visitor pass that he got after assuming he passed a background check, a NICS background check with an assumed identity. And he follows the directions to the Joint Task Force Southern Border Command Center, her words, not mine, and just walks in the building. Even though that's absolutely impossible to just walk in that building.
I mean, he
have to have
was
a
already
card.
on
It's badge
base.
access into those buildings.
He was already on base, though. That should give him free reign to walk into whatever building he wants to walk into.
The command center for Joint Task Force Southern Border. He just walks.
No. See, you have to understand that in Candyland, Cultville, if he's on base, that is free reign to go anywhere that he wants to go, despite the fact that a visitor pass does not get you into buildings you're not supposed to go into. It gets you into the PX. You might be able to stop at Burger King. Maybe.
Right. And there actually is a Burger King. I found the place on the map. There is a Burger King pretty close to the hotel on base. So every one of those buildings is badge access. Harry Meyers, aka new guy that passed a supposed background check, is not wandering into the Joint Task Force Command Center. And then when he magically wanders into the building, he encounters, again, more E4, E5 lieutenant colonels who are checking him in, and he notices, and he's actually surprised that he sees 12 E4, E5 lieutenant colonels come out of a room when he's in the building. They came out of a meeting room, and there's a very suspicious looking guy with glasses and gray hair and about 5'10". And with him, Harry's certain, he's positive that it is the head of Turning Point USA's security. And I don't remember the guy's name by now.
Brian Harple.
Brian Harple.
Brian Harple is his name. Yeah.
Right. So this whole thing happens, right? And then it's not even over yet and then, according to Candace and according to Harry, as soon as he saw all of these lieutenant colonels, which, by the way, only happens at the Pentagon. No, it doesn't. You can see that at the fucking officers club right down the street. What? It
happens literally daily on these bases, particularly this one, and you're going to find out why.
Yeah. So listen, all of my questions are basically not answered, but they're asked at this point. How the hell did Harry Meyers, aka new guy, who assumed an identity, who never went through federal witness protection, never got a new identity issued to him, never had a new social security number issued to him, any of that stuff, even get on the base in the first place? And then how did he walk through badge access, magnetic lock doors to get into the Joint Task Force Southern Border Command Center to see this miraculous meeting unfolding? It's, guys, again, Occam's razor. Come on.
Well, but then it goes on, and this is the part for me that stuck out like a sore thumb. And as soon as I heard her explain this segment, I immediately was like, yeah, this is bullshit. So she then, in a breathless diatribe, goes on to explain how apoplectic Harry Meyers was at the fact that 2 what she referred to as captains approached him, detained him for 7 hours, and interrogated him. And not only interrogated him, tried to gaslight Harry Meyers into believing that he was a bomb threat and a threat to the facility and a potential threat to himself. All because Harry Meyers just wanted some answers about why the military didn't protect him 35 years ago. So Nom, can you think of any other reasons why officers, let's just assume, okay, let's assume for a second that somehow Harry Meyers was able to get on base, stayed at Candlewood Suites, got a visitor pass, was able to somehow sneak his way into the little nerve center of this joint task force, the command center, and present himself and start asking questions about why he wasn't protected. Can you imagine why maybe officers might be a little bit concerned about how this guy got there?
Yeah.
Do you think,
there's like 5 layers of security that failed.
You've spent a lot of time on military installations. Do they typically approach people and question people that don't look like they should be where they are?
It's actually like literally one of your general orders.
And not only that, but there are like entire like job descriptions in the military that's their job is to do that. Like that's what they get paid tiny bits of money to do.
Right. Yeah.
So I decided when I listened to this, I decided to spend some time investigating, and I asked what is probably the most obvious question that Candace Owens apparently never thought to ask. What else could be going on at Fort Huachuca around September 8th? Because you would think that this is a pretty obvious question to ask, right? Like,
now remember,
right?
Joint Task Force Southern Border. Okay, carry on. I just wanted to remind everybody that's the name of the unit down there at Fort Huachuca, Joint Task Force Southern Border. Okay.
I mean, isn't it an obvious question to say, what could possibly happen in a nerve center, a command center for a joint task force in September that is not the planning of an assassination of a civilian? What else could be going on? Well, since Candace didn't ask, I did. And here's what I found out. So September happens to have been a period, which you guys, if you pay attention, you know this, of intensified U.S. military activity focused on the southern border security, specifically countering narcotics interdiction, which interestingly enough is exactly what this joint task force is there to do. Because if you remember, the joint task force's job is protecting the southern border and intercepting narcotics flying over the border, right? That's what the task force is designed to do. So they included both direct border operations, which was surveillance, barriers, joint task force coordination, and emerging efforts against maritime drug trafficking in the Caribbean.
Wait.
What?
Hold on.
No.
Well, hold on.
Yes.
Wait.
Yes.
Maritime drug trafficking in the Caribbean. Haven't we just been bombing the snot out of drug boats in the Caribbean?
Yes.
So there's no way they were actually planning those things. They were obviously planning the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Well, they had to be. They had to be focusing 12 to 13 E5 lieutenant colonels on the assassination of Charlie Kirk instead of the fact that September 2025 marked a massive surge in planning and execution phases for these missions, making a high-level field-grade officer briefing at Joint Task Force Southern Border highly plausible. Fort Huachuca
probably required, actually. Not just
probably required.
Because I don't know if you know this or not. Hold on. I don't know if you know this or not, but you don't have one planning meeting.
No.
To go and literally bomb.
They do it every day.
Triple tap. Yeah.
They do it
all day.
In my line of work, I literally have status meetings all day, every day. That's what I do. And I guarantee you the command center for the joint task force that is responsible for executing border security and military operations in the Caribbean is probably meeting every day with 12 to 13 lieutenant colonels and others Probably higher
E4,
ranked
E5
people than that.
lieutenant colonels.
E4, E5 lieutenant colonels. All right. So Fort Huachuca as the, you got to hear this, as the hub for Joint Task Force Southern Border. It was the nerve center for counter drug and migration operations in mid-2025 September, which was a pivotal month for ramping up interoperability amid a reported spike in fentanyl. So they were specifically targeting a spike in fentanyl out of this command center. So Joint Task Force Southern Border was in the midst in September of deploying enhanced detection tech and constructing temporary barriers along high traffic sectors like Arizona's Tucson area. A major interagency land agreement enabled expanded military access to federal lands for monitoring routes, which field test accelerating in early September. You mean they were actually in the process of deploying new technology? Hey, Nom, you live in this space. Do you have to meet regularly when you're in the process of deploying new technology?
Yes. Like,
okay,
not just regularly, like nonstop,
all day,
actually, like constant communication. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So on September 19th, the U.S. Army highlighted Joint Task Force Southern Border's unprecedented interoperability, unprecedented, with U.S. Border Patrol, emphasizing unique capabilities like engineering support for tunnel detection. National Guard units under Joint Task Force Southern Border conducted joint exercises with the Border Protection's air and marine operations, focusing on aviation support for interdictions. A September 22nd solicitation for access control systems at Fort Huachuca specifically supported expanding their footprint. This was the peak planning season for Q4 ops, with lieutenant colonel level staff routinely convening for classified updates on threat assessments.
Wait.
Yeah.
Something just occurred to me that I didn't even think to ask myself. Do you think Fort Huachuca, the base, is going to grant like just random civilian guest passes while this highly classified stuff is going on?
No.
On their base?
No. No. They are not going to give a visitor pass
for some dude.
Did I just disappear? Am I still here?
No, I see you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, goodness. I hear you. You're not moving on my screen.
What's going on?
There you're moving.
Oh, no.
I see you.
Oh,
Don't go anywhere.
Following is trying to take me out. I'm not.
Don't. We can hear you.
Are we back? Okay. All right.
Here.
You're buffering on me. Anyway, folks, there ain't no chance in hell that Fort Huachuca is going to grant a visitor pass to some dude off the street when they are literally with lieutenant colonel and colonel level staff routinely convening for classified updates and threat assessments. It's not happening.
Are you there? Oh, my goodness. He can't hear me. I can't hear him. I don't know what people can hear out there. I have no idea. Patriot Dad, come back. Come back. This is crazy. Did we lose him? Oh, we lost Patriot Dad. Son of a gun. All right, so I'm going to keep reading. Let me text him real quick and say, we lost you. You're gone. All right. So I'm going to keep. Oh, he's entered the studio. He's coming back in.
What in the holy heck? We must have kicked off someone. Someone's pretty pissed off, I think. Can you guys hear?
I'm removing that guy and I'm adding new guy. Where are you?
I'm right here.
I'm removing you. I'm adding you back. There we go. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Can you take some of the graphics off of the green screen that we've already used? I don't think we actually have any more. Maybe get rid of them all.
I don't think we do.
All right, guys, in the comments, am I back? Can you guys see me?
Yes.
This is the weirdest thing. All right. I don't know what I said last that you heard, but I'm in agreement with you that there is a snowball's chance in hell that Harry Meyers was allowed onto base at a time where lieutenant colonel and colonel level staff were routinely convening for classified updates on threat assessments. Hold on, I'm going to keep going. Operations against narco-terrorist boats in the Caribbean primarily happening under U.S. Southern Command, but required NORTHCOM JTF SB coordination. So not only were they engaging in military operations on the border, but they were also coordinating on Caribbean attacks on Venezuelan narco-terrorist boats. And yet Harry Meyers was allowed to just waltz on the base. Folks, do you now understand why, if he even made it on base, which at this point is very suspicious, that there ain't no way in hell that they were just going to allow this guy to wander around without trying to figure out who he was, detain him, interrogate him, and figure out what the hell he's doing there?
I mean, I got to wonder. In fact, I'm going to pull this back up because I didn't look at this this image file too closely. Which one was it? It's pick 5. I want to pull this up. Do you have to provide a reason why you're coming on base? I'm pretty sure you do. You don't just say, I'm a civilian, I want to come on base. Let's see what we got here. We've got passport, yeah, passport number, passport country, sex, eye color, military personnel information, applicant. So this access request form does not appear to require a reason. Military personnel, subcontractor, vendor information applicable, government sponsor. Yeah. I mean, I don't even see, I don't see anything on here that would explain.
No, there is. It says purpose. There's a section right there. Yeah, section 3. The whole section is purpose of visit. Purpose.
Oh, no shit. So
yeah,
Harry Meyers.
Ask you to, yep.
So Harry Meyers, aka new guy.
Hold on a second. There we go.
Harry Meyers, aka new guy, has to provide a purpose for his visit right around the time that you've got all of this drug interdiction, blowing up Venezuelan drug boats. All of this stuff is being planned and orchestrated at a Joint Task Force Southern Border Command Center. And Harry Meyers puts in there, yeah, listen, I'm a jilted former 10th Mountain Unit guy who I had to go into hiding for 35 years, and now I want to come down and confront CID and understand why they didn't help me. Do you think they're going to approve that request while all of this is... Actually, I don't think they'd approve that request at all. They'd probably say, call your senator.
Or they would probably call the Department of Homeland Security to investigate this dude who wants to show up on the base. Harry Meyer that wants to show up on the base. He probably wrote, and the reason for his visit is, I got questions. I got questions. I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. Now, the one thing that I do have to leave just a little bit of room here for, because again, Candace has absolutely failed epically at providing any type of validation for any of these claims. She says that she has the document. She says she's seen it. So that would mean that she actually has a copy of the document that Nom just pulled up there, the form that Harry Meyers would have had to have filled out in order to get access to the base. So Candace, it's time to show the document, or Harry, show the document. We want to see the approval that you were granted to get on base. We demand to see it. However, the thing that Candace did on yesterday's episode is she named names. She named 2 names. She named the head of Turning Point USA Security and said that the whole reason why she's convinced that this was a planning meeting is because Harry Meyers is convinced that he saw this Harpole guy at the Joint Task Force Southern Border. There's just one problem with that. And I didn't pull the video, and I'll make a video of this. Because you remember, Candace prefaced this entire conversation by saying that she believed that Charlie Kirk was sent to Asia as a distraction to get him out of the country so that they could then in turn plan his assassination. Well, I came across a video today, and I forgot to grab it. I'll see if I can find it, of the head of security, Harpole, in an interview saying that he was with Harry in Asia. Now, I have not yet confirmed that that's true, so I will
with Charlie, not Harry.
I'm sorry, with Charlie,
not Harry, because that would be
so my question would be, and I'm going to try to verify this, so we can't say it definitively yet. My question would be, if you were trying to get Charlie Kirk out of the country to plan his assassination, why then would you send the guy that was supposedly at the meeting to plan his assassination with him?
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way that Charlie's head of security is not going to go to a foreign country with him. That's just not a thing. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And so A. Beaverhausen 10 asked a really great question. How did Harry know what Brian looked like? Well, we're not told that. Candace never told us that. All she said is that she was convinced that it was him.
She did. She did say that he didn't know what he looked like at the time, but in the ensuing days, because of all the publicity, he recognized him, and he's convinced that the guy that he saw with the 12 E5, E4, E5 lieutenant colonels and the very spooky dude was Brian Harple. He's convinced of it. He knows he knows it was because of what because he saw Brian Harple on the news and on clips later on. That's what she said.
All
Just
right.
to be
all right, Candace. It is time for you to finally give some receipts, because you said that you have all the documents. You flat out told us that you have the documents. You've seen them all. You've done your best to fact check them. So release them. Release the document that shows that Harry Meyers was given approval by Fort Huachuca for him to be on base. Release everything at this point, because quite honestly, until you do, I think it is pretty obvious what's happening here. And June 18 says it perfectly. At this point, I'm thinking Candyland is working with British Intel MI6, which, by the way, is exactly the theory that I've been operating under, that we have been operating under since we started investigating exactly who Candace Owens' husband is. And now I think we've actually been able to show, or we will be able to show definitively, that the tactics that are being used by Candace Owens are well established, very well trained, age-old tactics used by military intelligence organizations to execute color revolutions across the globe. I think we can show that. So I decided to spend some time today using AI to help analyze Candace Owens' content. And I wanted AI to help me pull out some of the psychological techniques that are being deployed. Because when you do this long enough and you study propaganda, you study how these NGOs and these networks and these foreign intelligence agencies operate, you can see this easily. It starts to become common to you. You start to recognize how these tactics work. So AI actually laid it out for me and helped me understand what the actual names of these psychological tactics are. And I kind of want to run through this with you guys so that you can see it. But the question, and one of the questions I asked AI was, is it possible that somebody could just stumble upon these very well documented, very well crafted, executable psychological techniques the way that somebody would have to just stumble on them to execute them as perfectly as Candace Owens is executing them? And the answer is obviously no. In order to do these things as well as she does them, she has to have been trained. She has to have been handed some type of information to do it, because it's not just one or two techniques. It is an entire litany of techniques. Not only a litany of techniques, but the exact same techniques that are used by USAID, all the NGOs, MI6, Mossad, the US intelligence agencies, and they have deployed them since the beginning of the color revolutionary period back in 2003. They began to document this. They began to celebrate these techniques. The first one is what's called confirmation bias exploitation. Basically, what she's doing is she's playing on her followers' pre-existing suspicions and then selectively presents facts, but fails to provide any evidence. And one perfect example of how she does this, we talked about it on Monday. In a recent post correcting the timing of an Egyptian Air Force plane's departure from Provo, Utah, she pivots from an error to insist that it's still completely abnormal, and seems pretty obviously related to Charlie Kirk's assassination, which is feeding the anti-foreign intervention biases. instead of just acknowledging that there was a tech conference going on in Provo at the same time. So because she got caught lying about these Egyptian airplanes, instead of just admitting the fact that, hey, I might have got this wrong, her pivot was basically to say, yeah, okay, but it's still completely abnormal for these planes to have been there. No, it's not, because there's a freaking tech conference going on. It's not abnormal at all. The next one is what's called illusory truth effect versus repetition. And you hear her do this masterfully. She repeats the same narratives and the same lies over and over and over again. She's mastered how to make baseless assertions feel familiar. And by using this repeatedly, she's exposing her audience to falsehood so they become familiar in their minds as they engage others. This is the reason why it sounds like her audience, when you engage them, are using the same script, because she is psychologically embedded into their psyche very specific, repetitive concepts over and over and over again. So they will repeat them over and over and over again. It's literal brainwashing. The next one is what's called fear appeal and emotional priming. She's convinced her audience that she's only looking for answers, and then turns around and creates fear that everything that counters her narrative is a betrayal and an existential threat to her friend's legacy. She's even using this technique against Erica Kirk, as you saw today in the back and forth. So now Erica Kirk and Erica Kirk's leadership of Turning Point USA is an existential threat to Charlie Kirk's legacy. This is a time-tested psychological technique that has been deployed by intelligence agencies across the world. The next one is what's called social proof and participatory illusions. And she does this all day long. By crowdsourcing investigations, she's creating what's called social proof, which is a tendency to confirm perceived group consensuses. She deputizes her audience to feel like her co-detectives, and then she creates ownership, which basically turns passive agreement into active defense against skeptics, because they feel like they have a part in her story, because she is encouraging them to engage and to become detectives and to send her tips. And she sends her army out to go research people. She did this with the maroon shirted military operatives. She literally engaged her army to go out and try to crowdsource people's information so that she could find them. And then anytime you engage somebody in this, they immediately feel ownership, and then they come to your defense when you're attacked. Psychological ops being deployed against the American people. Authority substitution and anecdotal anchoring. Because she lacks any real evidence of her theories, she substitutes anonymous sources, which, by the way, we've talked about a lot, which is this concept of laundering information. If you don't have a source to tell the story that you want to tell, you just say you have an anonymous source, or you received a tip, or you had a dream, or somebody sent you an email. It's an anonymous source. And then it goes on. The next one is in-group polarization and out-group demonization. Man, this is playing out hardcore. She always refers to herself and her audience as truth tellers. They are the only ones who are telling the truth and who are seeking answers. And then she goes on to demonize people outside of the group by dismissing doubters as haters. She labels them as haters. Anyone who is not on board with her agenda is a hater. This technique is called in-group polarization and out-group demonization. Her rhetoric often veers into ad hominem attacks on figures like Bill Ackman, Kash Patel, framing them as betrayers in order to deepen the division. Drip feeding and the Zeigarnik effect, releasing information in serialized teasers, exploits the Zeigarnik effect. This is creates a psychological tension from unresolved stories, keeping audiences hooked for completion that never fully materialize without evidence. This sustains a dopamine-driven engagement mimicking addictive media. Folks, even the smartest audiences can fall victim to these tactics because they are as old as time. They have been engaged repeatedly in efforts to destabilize civil societies. These are not tactics that somebody just stumbles upon. You don't just figure this out by doing live podcasts. You might stumble on one of them. You might read some PR books or some advertising books or some marketing books and understand the value of drip feeding and things like that. But you do not deploy every single one of these techniques over and over and over again in every single video without being well trained. Like I mentioned, USAID and their networks of NGOs have always used these techniques as a major part of their psychological operations as they are deploying and executing color revolutions. In fact, USAID's 2021 disinformation primer explicitly trains these techniques. And they have embedded these skills into, listen to this, quote, local actors for information pollution offensive tactics. What you are watching right now, it is my opinion, based on years of research and studying these people, you are watching the deployment of another angle of the ongoing color revolution that's been playing out in this country for years. You are watching the NGO network, USAID, and foreign intelligence agencies who are driving a wedge between the one thing that stands between them and a takeover of the country, which is the MAGA base. Fact of the matter is, folks, what we should be looking at is where these people come from. We showed you guys on Monday the connections between George Farmer, his relationship to Parler at the time that Parler was used. What many believe, Parler was brought back online in 2021 under the Biden administration, and many people believe was used to map and build a network of the January 6th defendants. We're now starting to hear some rumblings, and I don't know if you have it, Nom. Do you have the 0 hour post in there? We're now starting to hear. I think I put it in
maybe. Yeah, I think I do. Let me find it. Keep going.
We're now starting to hear some rumblings that one of the things that might have pissed off Candace Owens immediately or initially was that George Farmer was actually angling to take over the interim CEO position and ultimately the company.
Hold on. That's not the right one. Hold on. Stand by. Stand by.
So here's one of my favorite X accounts, 0 hour. If you don't follow this guy, go follow this guy. His account is absolutely incredible. George Farmer, who is Candace Owens' husband, wanted to be named CEO of Turning Point USA. He was turned down for the role by Erica Kirk, who assumed the post of Charlie. He is the wizard behind Candace Owens. His father is Lord Farmer of London. He sits on the Council of Jews. This is a power play to insert influence all over American politics.
UK British intelligence influence, because that's
right.
Who George Farmer is, right. Allegedly.
Well, here's something interesting that I found. So I was floating around today researching who this guy is because I wanted to understand what's the story of how Candace Owens suddenly met George Farmer, who obviously has some very suspicious ties to UK and potentially US rogue elements of US intelligence that were allegedly involved in using a revamped Parler platform to map conservative voices. And then that mapping undoubtedly ended up in the hands of the Biden administration and probably created a foundation for what became Arctic Frost, which was a wiretapping and surveillance operation against hundreds of conservative voices. One of the people at the top of their list was Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. So I wanted to understand, how does this guy end up being introduced to Candace Owens? Well, we all know the story because Candace has told the story. Back in 2018, they were at a Turning Point UK event, a launch, and they were introduced to one another. And then after 18 days over Skype or FaceTime, George just suddenly decides to ask her to marry him. And we're going to show you a video here in a few minutes of his perspective of how that relationship started. But what's really interesting, throw that back up there real quick, is we're now starting to hear at least allegations that the person who introduced George Farmer and Candace Owens is someone by the name of Allie Hanley. Allie Hanley is the wife of a person named William Lee Hanley Jr., who is a former CIA asset, is now deceased, I understand, and for quite a while was in charge of something called the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which is a domestic version of Voices of America, which is an international, or used to be a radio, basically a radio network that was used by USAID and the State Department to promote democracy, or ultimately was used to help engage in color revolutions.
I need to stop you right here because I get this all the time. And I know it's not related, but I've got to address this. For everybody that comes into any of my comments, and I'm sure all you guys see it all the time, the Smith-Mundt Act. Trump needs to re-implement the Smith-Mundt Act so that he can charge the mainstream media for lying. Guys. The Smith-Mundt Act never affected private media. It only affected government-run, government-paid-for, sponsored media that was pushing information about the United States out to foreign countries, like Voice of America, right? The Smith-Mundt Act made it illegal for the United States government to push propaganda to foreign countries. Biden or Obama got rid of the Smith-Mundt Act so that we could propagandize foreign countries. And when you said Voice of America, I had to say that because I get that at least 10 times a day. At least 10 times.
Well, folks, the problem is they built the entire network of NGOs to get around the Smith-Mundt Act anyway. That's the whole reason why USAID and the State Department were in operation, is so that they could, with a blind eye, hand over hundreds of billions of dollars to these non-governmental organizations that are not covered, don't really have any visibility. There's almost zero accountability in any of what they're doing, and that money can flow into color revolutions. That's why they built it. That's why the network exists in the first place.
Mike Benz has said over and over and over again that USAID and NGOs were the vehicle to do all of the things that were illegal for the United States government to do. All of the things that they wanted and needed to do to overthrow elected leaders, democratically elected leaders around the world, because the CIA couldn't legally do it. USAID and NGOs were doing it. That's why they exist.
That's right. Did you know, Nom, I caught this video today and I didn't grab it. Kind of wish I would have. Did you know that George Farmer is a lifelong fan or friend, a lifelong friend of Andrew Tate? Did you know that?
Not until you told me. I don't care. Whatever.
It's just interesting. I don't know what that actually means, but I mean, you guys know Andrew Tate. I mean, obviously we all know Andrew Tate, the one that was accused and arrested and indicted on, sexual assault charges in multiple different countries. Whether he did it or not is irrelevant, but George Farmer is a longtime friend of Andrew Tate, for whatever that means. All right. So I want to leave us with this. We have a video that I want to show you of somebody interviewing George Farmer, and he's talking about his relationship with Candace Owens. And I want you to listen to this and think for a second. Does this sound like somebody who fell deeply head over heels in love at first sight, and asked someone to marry them for no reason except for love at first sight in 18 days? Go ahead.
I don't know. You've got two of them down here with screen recording on it. So I'm going to pick one, and if it's not, we'll play the other one.
Yeah.
Ready?
Okay. Yep.
Happy Tuesday.
Nope.
Where to begin? Tuesday.
Nope.
Where to begin? Well,
Where is
Try the other one.
I did.
Is it in there? Oh, it has to be in there.
Oh, you know what? I actually labeled it. Stand by.
Okay.
I got it down here in the Dropbox. I actually went in and labeled it George Farmer.
Like,
there we go.
This is a different woman to any woman that I meet her. So she was giving a speech in London, and she was giving a speech at the Royal Automobile Club, which is a club in Pall Mall in London. And I was in the audience. We met, we shook hands, and I just knew kind of when I met her, I was like, this is a woman who she just commanded a power. It was very difficult to describe. Nothing romantic was said, you know, between that day and the day that we got engaged. Nothing romantic was said at all. You know, there was no overtures. Like we didn't go for dinner. Like we didn't take it. Nothing.
Send her flowers.
No, nothing. Yeah, nothing. Exactly. And so I was very clear about that, because it was almost like getting to know oneself in some ways. It was kind of a very strange experience. You know, it was like I saw myself in her, and in doing so, and that sounds sort of, well, I fell in love with myself. No, I didn't fall in love with her. I fell in love with a woman who gave so much of myself back to me, you know, and I kind of, I was very willing to let myself fade and give glory to her. You know, that's how I view our marriage in many ways. Like I'm very happy to take a secondary position to give glory to her. You know, I'm far less politically involved now than I was, because she's much more politically involved than I ever could be. When I met her, she was this tour de force, you know, incredible mind, incredible beauty. I was so willing to just be enraptured to her.
I don't even know what he just said. I mean,
I have no idea what he just said.
If I spoke about Mrs. Nom like that, she would punch me in the face. What? My goodness.
I don't even know. I don't even know how to like address that, except to say this. That does not sound like the first meeting of someone who falls in love with somebody at first sight. That sounds like somebody who got caught off guard and is in fact a foreign intelligence handler for an asset and didn't know how to answer the question. That's what that sounds like.
Yeah, I don't even know. And people are like, well, you can't talk about their relationship. Bullshit. That's all you're doing is talking about Charlie and Erica's relationship. You all can fuck off.
That's right. I won't say it, but that's what you can do. All right, let's wrap it up. We're at an hour and 32. Mrs. Patriot Mom just came in and gave me the look like it's time to go hang out. So we're out of here, folks. I hope you got something out of this. We'll be back next week. I'm sure SK will be back. If you haven't liked and subscribed and done all the things, please do that over on all the channels. There's no reason why you can't subscribe on YouTube and watch us on Rumble or vice versa. Do it. It's free. It costs you nothing, but it actually helps to amplify the momentum of these videos, of these lives. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to help raise awareness to the color revolution that's going on in this.
I think we lost Patriot Dad again. So I'm just going to get us out of here. I'm getting us out. We lost Patriot. Yeah, we're out of here. Bye, guys.
All right. See you guys.
The bullets and the punches and the riots have been flowing in only one direction for too long.
I've been trying to tell you guys this whole time how corrupt all of these things were, and here we are.
It is not our responsibility to fix something they spent years intentionally trying to destroy. Unity can only happen in a country when you have a people who agree on what the outcome should be.